Hello my friends and welcome to MyECO. This lesson is very important. It's about the present perfect tense. Let's start the lesson. The present perfect tense does not exist in every language, but it's very important in English. We use the present perfect tense for some different things. One is to express experience. Have you ever been to Paris, for example? We also use the present perfect tense for something that just happened. For example, the police has just arrested a killer. That may be 30 minutes ago or an hour ago, etc. We also use the present continuous tense for something that has not happened yet. Have you eaten yet? No, I have not eaten yet. Finally, we use the present perfect tense to ask, for how long have you lived in Paris, for example? Or, I have lived in Paris for 7 years. I have lived in Paris since 2005, etc. With the perfect tenses, we use verb 3. It's also called the past participle. For example, swim, swam, and swum. I have swum in the sea, for example. And the verb 3 for have is had. For example, we have had our dinner. That's we have eaten our dinner. We are not hungry now. Here we have a cause and a result. So we have had our dinner. We are not hungry now. And he has had a car accident. That's the cause. And the result is he is in the hospital now. We use the present perfect tense when we want to show that there is a result now. But we don't know when it happened. Just, already, and yet. We use the present perfect tense with just, already, and yet. For example, I have just painted the room. It looks very clean. This was a short time ago, but we don't know exactly when. Also, the result is that it looks very clean. I have already done my homework. I've already done my homework. I don't need to do it again. And I haven't finished the project yet. With these words, we use the present perfect tense. We also use it to talk about experience. I have eaten sushi once, twice, 3 times, several times, many times, etc. before. Or if you haven't had the experience, you can say, I haven't been to Paris before. And as a question, have you ever played soccer? Yes, I have played soccer many times. Or, I have never played soccer before. We use the present perfect tense sometimes to express how long something happened. We use for and since. I have lived in Athens for 2 years, for example. Or I have lived in Athens since 2014. We can use for with, for example, I have been speaking for, beep. We can use for with 5 minutes, 10 days, 2 months, 6 years, and ages. Ages means a long time ago. I have been traveling for ages. We can also use since with 1988, for example, last month, 2 o'clock, Monday, and yesterday. Here are some examples. She has watched TV for 2 hours, or she has watched TV since 4 o'clock. And as a question, we say, how long? How long have you lived here? And we must use for. How long have you lived here? For 2 months, or since April. Here again, we use the present perfect tense to express a cause, something that happened in the past, but we don't know when exactly. And here we have a result. He has broken his arm, so it is in plaster now. And here we use verb 3. I have just finished reading a novel. That is just. Something that just happened a short time ago. And we haven't eaten dinner yet. And I have played basketball once. That's about experience. We have lived in the city for 10 years. That's how long. Also, we can say she has worked as a nurse since last year. That's also expressing how long. Let's take a look at the different verbs, verb forms. Verb 1, we also call the present simple. The present simple tense. And verb 2 is, of course, the past simple tense. And verb 3 is called the past participle. The past participle. And for the present perfect tense, we use the past participle. Here we have work, worked, and we pronounce this t, worked. And again, with the verb 3, it's worked. Work, worked, and I have worked. Go, went, and gone. But I have been to Paris. Let's take a look at this. Been. Been is to go and then come back. But gone is just to go and stay. So you stop there. And come, came, and come. Eat, ate, eaten. For example, have you eaten breakfast yet? Break, broke, broken. And sleep, slept, slept. Swim, swam, swum. And drink, drank, drunk. We should say something about drunk. A lot of native speakers don't use this word. A lot of native speakers use drank. I don't know the reason, but it may be because drunk also means I am drunk. That I had a lot of alcohol. So we may prefer to use I have drank. Let's take a look at the virtual screen. Here are some more examples with the present perfect tense. I have or has plus verb 3, and that's the past participle. I have drunk a glass of water, so I'm not thirsty now. In this sentence, we have a cause and a result now. I have just eaten a hamburger. I have already done my homework. Or I haven't done my homework yet. And if we want to talk about experience, we can say, for example, I have played soccer once, twice, 3 times, a few times, several times, many times, or a lot of times. If we want to ask about an experience, we can ask, for example, have you ever been to London? and we pronounce it been, not been. If we say it quickly, it's have you ever been to London? Yes, I have been to London twice. Or no, I have never been to London. We can also use the present perfect tense to talk about how long. How long have you worked as a teacher? I have worked as a teacher for 6 years, or I have worked as a teacher since 2010. We can also use for with, for example, 10 minutes, 2 weeks, 3 hours, or 5 years. We can also use since with last month, yesterday, 1995, or February as an example. Thank you so much for watching this lesson that was about the present perfect tense. I hope you have already learned a lot. You can do the exercises now, and I will see you next time.